You ever notice how people only believe something's coming when it already arrived? They'll stare into the darkness for years, begging for light. And the moment a flicker appears, they squint suspicious, like they're waiting for it to turn into another shadow. That's how they treat people too, especially the ones sent to shift everything. No trumpets, no red carpet. Just a quiet knock on the door of their routine, and they hesitate. Because they prayed for connection, for help, for love, but they didn't really think it would walk in wearing skin and flaws and a past of its own. They always want a sign. A blinking arrow in the sky, fireworks spelling out answers, maybe even a divine message carved into the toast they burned this morning. But timing. No, timing doesn't care about your alarms or your calendar apps. It doesn't knock politely and say, "Are you ready now?" It shows up with muddy shoes, kicks the door open, and smirks while you're still in your pajamas, fumbling to pretend you've got it all together. And that's the punchline. You thought you had control, that you were calling the shots, that life waited on your green light, that the cosmos was your delivery boy, and you were just sitting there tracking the package of your future. But timing, it's a madman with a crooked clock. It's that eerie laugh in the middle of silence, that chill up your spine when everything seems too calm. Because the real joke is, you're not the one who gets to decide when the shift comes. You never were. You made all these plans, didn't you? Vision boards, goals, spreadsheets full of deadlines. And you clung to those like a child holding a paper sword, thinking it could defend them from reality. Cute. Adorable even. But completely useless when the real timing rolls in like a storm that doesn't care whether or not you brought an umbrella. You see, people love to believe they're waiting on something, waiting on the right time, the right person, the right moment. What they never seem to get is that the thing they're waiting for might already be on the move. But it's not going to slow down just because they're too busy scrolling, doubting, or second guessing. Timing doesn't apologize. It doesn't repeat itself. It doesn't text you first to let you know it's running late. It just arrives. Sometimes while you're distracted by all the things that don't matter. And when it does, it doesn't need your permission to change everything. It's hilarious how they pray for something, cry for it, scream for it even. And then when it comes, they look surprised. Like, oh no, not now, I'm not ready. As if readiness ever mattered. As if timing is supposed to cater to your comfort. As if the universe is a polite guest that calls ahead. No. It barges in with a grin and says, "I'm here, deal with it." That's when the panic sets in. Because now there's no excuse. Now it's not about if it'll happen, it's happening. And all those lies you told yourself about not yet crumble like cheap makeup in the rain. People love routine. They love the illusion of stability. Even if it's killing them, they'll cling to it just because it's familiar. So when divine timing finally shatters the silence, it feels like chaos, it feels like loss. But it's not. It's the arrival. It's the moment the curtain gets pulled back. The thing is, if you're always trying to be ready, you'll never actually move. Because real readiness isn't about having it all together, it's about being willing to lose what you were never meant to keep. It's about standing in the eye of the storm and laughing, not because you're fearless, but because you finally get the joke. And here's the real twist most of the time. When it shows up, it looks like a mess, not a miracle. It's uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. It interrupts your narrative, breaks your patterns, and demands more than you thought you had left. But it's here. And that's the only thing that matters. You can run sure. You can hide behind your somedays and your almosts. But timing, real, divine, unpredictable timing doesn't need your approval. It's coming whether you like it or not. And if you're too busy trying to make everything perfect before you move, you'll miss the very thing that was sent to shift you. That's the tragedy of it. They spend so much time trying to fix the frame, they don't realize the painting has already changed. The moment has already arrived. The presence, the shift, the invitation, it's here. But they're still rehearsing. Still brushing their teeth for a dinner that already started. And that's the part that gets me, the way they pretend they're waiting when really they're just scared of what happens when waiting ends. Because when it ends, the responsibility begins. Now it's your move. And that's what most people fear the most, not the miracle, but what they'll have to become once it shows up. It's funny how people build these little cages in their heads, decorate them with fairy lights and call it safety. They sit there scribbling blueprints for the kind of person they think is supposed to walk in, like they're ordering off a menu. Tall, charming, spiritual, but not too intense, strong but soft, broken but fixable. Someone who magically checks every box without knocking over a single insecurity. They set the criteria so specific that even fate rolls its eyes. The problem is, life doesn't do custom orders. What you want isn't always what you need, and what you need usually comes dressed as a contradiction. So someone shows up unexpected, not on your list, not part of the plan, and suddenly your inner alarms go off. Not because they're wrong for you, but because they're real. And real doesn't always wear perfume. Real sometimes stinks of honesty, of pain, of a past they're not proud of. But something in you recognizes it anyway. That magnetic pull. It's not chemistry, it's alignment. Like your soul cracked open for a second and whispered, this one. Not for comfort, not for show, but for growth. And what do most people do when that happens? They run. Not physically. No, they're too clever for that. They distance themselves with jokes, with rules, with the phrase one not ready like it's a bulletproof vest. They let fear dress up as standards, let expectation strangle the moment before it even breathes. Because if the person in front of them doesn't look like the version they rehearsed, they assume it's a mistake. As if the divine is required to follow their Pinterest board, but the spirit doesn't deal in appearances. It deals in resonance. You'll meet someone and your logic will scream, this doesn't add up. But your chest, your bones, they'll hum like a violin tuning itself. And that's what terrifies people. Because when you recognize someone at that level, it means change is coming. It means mirrors will be held up, wounds touched, masks questioned. And people would rather keep their illusions than risk having to see themselves through someone else's eyes. This is why so many miss what's meant for them. Because they're listening with their minds instead of their spirit. They want the divine, sure, but only if it's filtered, polished, and easy to explain to their friends. So, when the real one comes along, raw and along, damaged but glowing and waged in ways they can't explain, they flinch. Because the real thing isn't comfortable. It's disruptive. It's the kind of presence that doesn't just enter the room, it shifts the gravity. It's hilarious, really. People beg for a sign, for help, for a partner that understands their storm, and when the storm tamer shows up, muddy boots and all, they say, this can't be it, because they expected sunshine. A ribbon, maybe a harp playing in the background. Not someone who looks at them and sees everything. Not someone who speaks to the parts they don't post. That's not romantic, is it? That's not the fantasy. That's reality. And reality is terrifying when you've built your identity around danctity, around the punchline. The person meant for you won't come to complete you. They'll come to confront you. They'll poke holes in the story you tell yourself. They'll ask questions your comfort zone can't answer. And you'll feel it, not like fireworks, no more like gravity shifting, like something deep in your chest remembering a language you forgot you know. And your mind will panic. It'll try to rationalize, to resist, to push them into a box where they don't fit. Because the mind craves control. But the soul just knows, and in that moment you'll have to choose. Keep holding out for your fantasy or surrender to the reality standing right in front of you. The one that doesn't match your list but matches your frequency. The one that doesn't say the right things but says the true ones. The one who wasn't supposed to be the one but somehow is. Not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And real doesn't knock twice, it just stands there waiting for you to see it. Ever notice how everything crashes right before the miracle walks in? It's like the universe has a sixth sense of humor, tearing everything down the moment you start to believe things are finally quieting down. You lose friends, sleep, your appetite for nonsense, poof, gone. You question your worth, your path, your sanity. You even argue with ceilings, asking why nothing ever stays. And in the middle of all that mess, all that nuss, not with answers, but with presence. The kind that doesn't explain itself. It just is. They don't fix anything. They don't come with glowing halos or gift-wrapped solutions. They come like an earthquake shaking loose the pieces of you that have been dying to break free. And while everyone else sees the chaos, something in you sees the connection. Not the kind you read about. The kind that feels like looking in a broken mirror and realizing the cracks match yours exactly. People don't tell you this part. They talk about love like it's a warm blanket, soft and secure. But real connection, that kind rips the blanket off. It makes you cold just to wake you up. Because sometimes the person who's meant to change your life doesn't enter like a lover, they enter like a mirror. They don't show up to blend in. They show up to reflect. And if you're not ready to see yourself, you'll hate them for it. You'll resent the way their presence makes you feel everything you've buried. You'll push them away just to get back to silence, but silence is a liar. It pretends to be peace when really it's avoidance. So when someone finally enters with enough weight to disrupt that silence, it feels like violence, because the truth doesn't whisper. It knocks. Loud. And the person who brings it usually doesn't mean to. They're not trying to be your catalyst, they're just being themselves, and that's what makes it so unbearable. They're not trying to change you, they're just showing you who you were before the world convinced you to shrink. It's the most uncomfortable kind of connection. The kind that doesn't give you butterflies, it gives you anxiety. Because it's not about chemistry, it's about confrontation. They trigger things. Wounds, fears, hopes you buried under maybe next time. You'll catch yourself laughing when you shouldn't, crying when nothing's wrong, staring at them like they've read a journal you never wrote. And deep down, you'll know, this isn't a coincidence. This is alignment, messy, inconvenient, terrifying alignment, and your ego, oh, it'll hate them. Because they threaten the story you built. The one where you're too broken, too late, too hard to love. But they'll look at you like none of that matters, like they see the version of you that still believes in magic. The one who survived. The one who's still breathing despite everything. And that gaze, it'll make you squirm. Because when someone sees you without judgment, your shadows get loud. They start screaming, trying to convince you to sabotage it before it gets too real. That's when most people run. Because the discomfort feels like danger. But it's not. It's recognition. Your spirit recognizing a frequency it forgot it knew. And yeah, it's scary. Of course it is. Because to allow that kind of connection means letting go of control. It means risking being seen and not understood. Risking being loved before you've finished fixing yourself. And people don't like risks, they like guarantees, labels, timelines, but the soul doesn't care about any of that. It just wants to feel home again, so this person, this disruptor, they won't fit the mold. They won't tick your boxes, they'll challenge your ideas of timing, of worth, of readiness. And in doing so, they'll offer you something no perfect plan ever could: growth. They won't heal you, but they'll make healing unavoidable. They won't complete you, but they'll remind you that you were never incomplete. They won't stay because you need them, they'll stay because your frequencies won't stop humming when you're near it. And that's the catch, isn't it? The ones who matter most never come easy. They come wrapped in doubt, dressed in unpredictability, but they come. Not because you called, not because you were ready, but because some part of you, the part you forgot existed, remembered what it felt like to be known. It's a funny thing, how people beg for clarity, for direction, for some grand announcement in the sky that says, here it is. The moment you've been waiting for. But when it finally shows up, they squint. They squint because it doesn't look like what they rehearsed. It's not wearing the robe. It's not floating above the ground. It doesn't have fireworks or trumpets. No, sometimes the most divine moments come dressed in silence, in whispers, in the way your skin tingles when you pass someone in the crowd and feel like you just walked through a doorway, one you didn't know existed, and it creeps in slow, this feeling this sense that something is shifting. You wake up and the sky feels heavier, but not in a bad way. Like the air is thick with revelation. Like your name's been called, but only your bones heard it. And suddenly you're alert. Not excited, not anxious, just aware. Like you're sitting on the edge of something huge, but you don't even want something. You just know you can't go back to pretending you're fine. In the waiting room, people underestimate the weight of readiness. Everyone wants the gift, the breakthrough, the person, the moment. But they forget how loud it gets right before it arrives. They forget that before gold shows up, you hear the cracking of old floors. You feel the shifting of foundations. Things fall out of place. People leave. Plans collapse. Because the space has to be cleared. That's the cost. You don't get new chapters without erasing a few paragraphs, and the erasing, it hurts. But that's the proof. That's how you know something's coming. The demolition always comes before the deliverance, and then right when you've got nothing left to hold on to, boom, there it is. The sign, the whisper, the sudden alignment. Something that makes your chest tighten, your stomach flip, and your mind scream, wait, what? Because you weren't expecting it like this. You weren't ready for it to be this quiet, this subtle, this wrapped in mystery. But that's how real things move. They don't kick down the door, they stand in it. And wait for you to look up, and when you do, when your eyes finally adjust to what's right in front of you, it won't make sense. Not at first, because it won't be logical. It won't fit into your timeline. It'll feel too fast, too soon, too much. But something in you will know. You won't be able to explain it, but you'll feel it, like a vibration deep in your ribs, like your soul just stood up and said, pay attention. And from that moment on, everything changes. Not because the world shifted, but because you did. You'll start seeing symbols in strange places. A song on the radio, a line in a movie. A stranger who says something that answers a question you didn't even ask out loud. And it won't be coincidence. It'll be alignment, threads being pulled, doors unlocking. All because you finally stood still long enough to see. That's the trick. Most people miss the moment because they're too loud, too busy performing, too busy proving. But the miracle, it's patient. It waits for silence, for surrender, for someone brave enough to look beyond the curtain and what's waiting there. Oh, not what you think, not perfection, not ease, but clarity, a knowing, the kind that wraps around your spine like electricity, the kind that doesn't ask for validation. It just is, and you won't be able to unfeel it, no matter how much your brain tries to argue. Your spirit will already be ahead of you, packing its bags, ready to walk through a door that hasn't even fully appeared yet. Because that's how destiny works. It arrives incomplete. It hands you a map with pieces missing and says, go anyway. And somehow you do, because once you've felt that shift, once you've sensed the weight of what's approaching, you can't go back to small talk and fake smiles. You can't pretend you didn't feel the future standing right next to you. You can't unhear the whisper that told you, look again. Not when your whole body recognized the signal. Not when everything inside you screamed, this is it. You ever notice how people get real quiet when they're close to something good? I'm not talking about quiet like peace. No, I mean that hush that falls over you when you're on the edge of something supernatural. The kind of quiet that hums like the air before a storm. The kind of quiet that almost feels like a warning. You feel it in your fingertips, behind your eyes, in your spine. It's not fear exactly. It's knowing. You're knowing something big's about to happen, but you've got no proof. No paperwork, just that pulse. That pressure in your chest that says stay still and watch. People expect miracles to make noise. But real ones move like shadows, silent, smooth, intentional. They don't announce themselves, they reveal themselves, little by little, like fog lifting. And most people, they miss it. They're too busy refreshing screens and chasing signs and screaming into the void. Meanwhile, the moment walks right past them, quiet as a breath, dressed in ordinary things. A glance, a shift, a strange calm that settles in without permission. And when that miracle lands, it doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like recognition. Like you've seen this moment before, maybe in a dream or a deja vu or disha or prayer you forgot you whispered. It wraps around you like there, finally. Not loud, not flashy, just certain. The kind of certain that doesn't need to explain itself. And suddenly the waiting makes sense, the loneliness, the confusion. The nights you stared at ceilings wondering if you were cursed or crazy. It all folds into one still second where it clicks. Like a lock turning. Like the final piece sliding into place, but here's the trick, you've got to move different once it shows up. You can't act like before. You can't let noise back in. When something sacred arrives, your silence becomes your shield. That's why the ones who really know, they don't broadcast, they don't post it, flaunt it, explain it. They protect it. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Out of respect for what they asked for and finally received. Because they know one wrong word, one insecure whisper, and they risk unraveling it all. You can't drag sacred things into shallow conversations. You can't expose gold to hands that only know how to steal. See, when something divine enters your life, you'll want to scream it from rooftops. But the wise ones, they don't scream. They smile, they nod, they walk light, because they understand what just happened isn't for show. It's for purpose. It's a mission, a shift, a code only they can decipher. And the more they protect it, the more it grows. Like fire in the dark, like seeds planted in secret. You water it with silence, and it blooms louder than any announcement ever could. But oh, people will sense it. They'll feel the change in your walk, the way you hold your breath a little longer, the way your eyes don't flinch anymore. They'll ask what happened to you, and you'll want to tell them. You'll want to pour it all out, hand them the whole miracle on a plate. But that's not how it works. If they couldn't sit with you in the drought, they don't get front row seats to the downpour. That's not being petty, that's being precise, disciplined, aligned, because blessings aren't entertainment, they're assignments. And if you treat yours like a spectacle, don't be surprised when it disappears like one, so you stay quiet. You honor the shift, you wear the miracle like skin, not to show it off, but because it's part of you now. A layer you earned in the fire. And yes, some people will fall away. They'll say you've changed like it's a bad thing. Let them. Let them retreat back into noise and chaos and clamor, because you've seen what silence brings. You've tasted what obedience sounds like. And once you've had that, everything else feels hollow. You don't chase anymore. You don't explain. You just watch. Watch as doors open without knocking. Watch as what once ran from you now circles back, desperate to be close to what you carry. Because when you move in silence after the miracle arrives, you become the storm. Calm, controlled, powerful. And you don't need permission to take up space anymore. You are the permission. You are the signal. And every step you take is proof that silence was never empty, it was strategy.